Member for Playford. Before I call the member for Playford, I remind the House that this is the member's first speech and that he should be accorded the normal courtesies and respect afforded to new members on this important occasion. The member for Playford.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy Speaker. I congratulate you on your appointment. While the Speaker is unavailable today, the elevation of an independent Speaker is significant, and I wish him all the best in his recovery and continuing in his role. I was honoured to hear the Governor's speech and am delighted to play my role in the delivery of the agenda she so eloquently outlined. As Her Excellency is relatively new to the position, I also wish her all the very best in her very important role. I thank the previous member for Playford for his outstanding service and support. The wonderful thing is he still sits in this chamber, albeit in the Speaker's chair, and will continue to be outstanding as the new member for Florey. Noting that the member for Ramsay previously represented parts of my constituency, her stellar work must also not go unnoticed, nor the support of her staff and her team that were given to me during the campaign. Mr Acting Speaker, this is going to be a long speech. It is not lost on me that few have the opportunity and honour to tell this story. I thank the people of Playford for this privilege and aim to do justice to the many wonderful people I mentioned today. This begins with our new Premier. It is an honour to be part of his team. To me, the most enduring quality of his leadership is he will never ask anyone to do something he is not prepared to do himself. Like every good leader, he leads by example. I have been fortunate to work for the new Deputy Premier. She is one of the most intelligent people I have met and is our best bet in addressing numerous environmental issues that we face. As a migrant, it is a true honour to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which we meet, the Kaurna people, and I pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. I also acknowledge that the electorate of Playford is on Kaurna land and will respect this while performing my duties as its local Member of Parliament. My time in the Northern Territory compels me to place on record that actions speak much louder than words. While I believe in the importance of sincerity, the opportunities before this Parliament are pivotal to Aboriginal Australians. May we lead by example in enshrining a meaningful voice to them in the hope it can lead to a brighter future for us all together. It is an honour to stand in this chamber as a rich man. These words are in part borrowed from the late Max Jelly, a loving father, husband, grandfather, soldier and friend to many, including myself. I have been fortunate to have grown up in a household full of love and have wonderful friends and now a beautiful family, making me also wealthy. I realised this when I was much younger and under sad circumstances. As a young man, I visited Max in hospital, knowing his time was coming to an end. Almost 20 years ago, he held my hand and quietly told me he was dying a rich man. As I became incoherent, he explained that his wealth had nothing to do with the accumulation of money and all to do with the love he had encountered along the way. I can't pinpoint the exact time I decided politics was for me, but I do know from that moment his life took on much greater meaning. Well, I don't think red was his political flavour. I begin by placing the memory of Max Jelly on Hansard as my way of saying thanks. I don't expect many of you here to know him, but see it as proof that if you are decent to people, you will be remembered long after you are gone. Despite many difficult chapters in his life, he could always find reasons to smile. He was the closest thing I knew to a hero. While we've all met people like these, they're real, they're amongst us, and they make everything better just by being themselves. In a world where the superficial gains respect over substance, I choose his memory and understanding on wealth as a first clue in who the people of Playford have sent to this chamber. It is not lost on me how much of an honour it has been to have been elected alongside 7 talented women to the Labor camp. With their strength in numbers and as individuals, not only can we begin to rewrite a wrong, we're all winners when the Parliament better represents people who elect them. Our next challenge must be the representation of a greater cross-section of the many ethnic communities that mould as one to make us all Australians. As a representative of one of the most multicultural electorates in South Australia, I found no shortage of future leaders ready to rise to the occasion. The origins of my values go back to Europe, namely England and Poland. During the Second World War, my maternal grandfather, Władek Koszton, who served in the Polish army and later worked in London, met my grandmother, Marjorie Hyde. The two got engaged before Władek went back to Poland in 1947. Marjorie joined him once she turned 21, in 1948, and my mum, Elizabeth, was born the following year. While their marriage of 29 years was a happy one, tragically, in 1975, Władek went missing and was never found. Margie, as we subsequently called her, returned to England. Despite her hardship, she always remained faithful to fairness and being a champion of the had-nots. I fondly remember watching Question Time with her during visits to England, observing her shout at the television and yearning for the chance to give Mrs. Thatcher a piece of her mind. I became fascinated by the ritual, and as time went by, our little talks evolved into a 30-year political discussion. Towards the end of her eventful life, she moved to Adelaide. By Christmas 2020, whispers were emerging of me being the candidate for Playford. At the same time, it seemed clear her health was going downhill. While I was asked to keep quiet, I confess that before I said my final goodbyes, I bent the rules a tiny bit and shared my secret with her. My final memory of Margie was that as I left the room, despite her fading health, she had a great sense of satisfaction on her face. My dad, John, not only shares my name, but also hails from the town of Reading in England, where I was also born. Growing up as a young boy in the Second World War, there could be no denying this chapter had a profound effect on him and his rather large bookcase. I never met my grandfather, George. He was one of many born in the late 19th century who'd been disrespected as a soldier, worker, and tenant. What separated his generation apart was the traction they made in standing up to the lauded gentry and saying enough was enough. He deserves much more than these few words, but close to 50 years after his death, in a distant land, I think he'd appreciate knowing his blood flows through this Labor Member of Parliament. By the time I was born in 1980, the wrecking ball known as Thatcherism was in full swing. The erosion of the welfare state was started by an individual who proudly proclaimed there was no such thing as society. Realising there was more to come, my parents decided a better future awaited for my sister Jane and I in South Australia. On a slight segue, during this campaign, my dear friend and long-term supporter, Paul Isbell, pointed out to me the irony of Thatcherism. Despite its endeavours, it succeeded in creating another Labor MP, albeit on the other side of the world and 40 years later. Starting a new life in a distant land is a bold step. My parents had never set foot in Australia, and like so many migrant families I met during my campaign, their bravery was rewarded. While family was left behind, Mum and Dad made the right decision to migrate, and I cannot thank them enough. I think the lure of good wine brought them to Adelaide, where we lived in migrant flats in Ascot Park for 12 months. While basic, even as a toddler, I remember these being happy times as we surrounded ourselves with other families who became what Dad described as our plastic uncles and aunties. Families such as the Masons, Petrovskas, Luchaks, and the immortally flamboyant Uncle David help fill voids in our lives that are as meaningful today as they were 40 years ago. Settling in a new country with just the four of us meant no casual visits to cousins, no babysitting from grandparents, or being led astray by a rogue uncle. It was just the four of us. It's taken a few years for us to realise, and while I know they'll challenge every word I say, we've been proud and resilient, and our closeness means we're difficult to break. I can only imagine how much harder it is for those that came here without a word of English and not being of European descent. It didn't take long before Mum and Dad were bewitched by the beauty of the Adelaide Hills. They often joked of their peasant heritage, which they proudly flaunted when they took over a few acres in Scott Creek. It was a utopia for us all, and light years away from the council houses of Reading and heavy industry of Upper Silesia. Their paradise was filled with fruit trees, flowers, vegetables, woodlots, sheep, chickens, and occasionally geese, meat hens, or turkeys. I have fond memories of our dam filled with yabbies, long road trips with my sister Jane, or forever wearing gumboots, and maybe picking blackberries, but always watching out for snakes. Across the dirt road lived the Austin family, with Melissa, a willing recruit to my misadventures. Sadly, the 1980s were not happy hunting grounds on the employment front, especially to migrants. Mum and Dad quickly realised they weren't going to make a fortune and found happiness in living modestly and reaping what they sowed. Selflessly, and as is the case with so many migrants to Australia, they gave away so much so that their children could have a bright future. Scott Creek Primary, the local school of 50 kids, was also a happy backdrop. They say small is beautiful, and with a principal in Brian Yule to show us why fairness mattered, I had everything I needed for the happiest of childhoods. While I refused to alter this perspective, things took a turn for the worst when Dad began working as a postman in the 1980s. I clearly remember the day back in 1989 when I was doing a job at a neighbour's place for Scout Job Week. Mum came over to tell me that Dad was in hospital. I was told not to worry, but he'd been forced off the road by a passing car driving a motorcycle. If it's a measure of a politician to keep a promise, I'm proud to say that for 33 years, I've kept mine by never hopping on a motorbike. When bones break, some heal better than others, and unfortunately, in Dad's case, things would not be the same for him again. He's continually put on a smile over the years, despite the ongoing agony he experiences to this day. I know that getting up those few stairs to watch me in the gallery have been agonising, but he bravely hides it under a beautiful smile. Beyond the physical pain, there's the emotional torture that workplace accidents leave in their trail. Maybe these were different times, but I'll never forget watching him take a call on Christmas Eve from the local manager of the post office. Despite the pain he'd been through and willingness to get back to work before things properly healed, Dad was sacked the day before Christmas. This taste of betrayal is something a 9-year-old should never swallow. We've heard the member for Adelaide bravely share the significance of green doors and letterboxes from her childhood. The member for Elder recounting the brilliance of tin tomatoes. To me, the image of a cheap red telephone that never worked properly can't be unseen. I remember Dad receiving this news from this phone while the aura of uncertainty descended upon Christmas. Events like this force youngsters to consider what they can do to help, and this is pondered for years to come. While I can't borrow a TARDIS and tell that young boy everything is going to be okay, I see hope as the ultimate currency for those in similar circumstances. May we spread this thick and fast over the next 4 years. My family has always believed in seeing the good in everything, even something as terrible as a workplace injury. Cameos in the workforce became few and far between for Dad, but as you can see, from almost living off the land, I was never hungry, and fortunate to always have both parents around me as I grew up. The reality of our lives today is that we are much poorer from our constant need to have both parents working to stay afloat. Sad to say that even before entering Parliament, the time I spent working has come at the cost of time with my son. While my intentions have been well-meaning, I'll be happy to join with anyone to explore how working families can give more time back to their loved ones. High school in Heathfield was initially a shock, but I stayed focused while working in a supermarket for 7 years. A part-time job not only put some extra money in my pocket, but also gave me the opportunity to grow up. Before too long, I found myself in Flinders University studying history and public policy. While I was just a face in the crowd, I was inspired most by Dr. Lionel Orchard and his lectures on urban politics. Initially, I felt social sciences weren't for me and found myself taking on a second degree in marketing through Edith Cowan University. With 2 degrees in my pocket, I heard London calling as a place to begin a career. It was anything but, and gave me the wake-up call I needed. People go to the UK to see places like Big Ben or Stonehenge, but I couldn't unsee those sleeping in doorways, colossal traffic, and the exploitation of workers. Realising it was not the place for me, I settled on having a short holiday while pouring pints for a few months. To be paid £4.25 an hour while the short bus ride to work was £3.80 made me realise there was something wrong. I could only have stayed afloat thanks to the generosity of Barbara and Arthur Sargent. I'm also grateful for their early career advice. Upon my return to Adelaide, I read about this dreadful thing called work choices and drew parallels to the labour market in the UK. Having had a taste of something similar, I felt obligated to ensure this never happened here. By 2004, I was an active union organiser and proud member of the Australian Labor Party. Within 3 years, I was managing the Labor campaign in Mayo for Mary Brewerton. We didn't win, but we were quite pleased with the 14.6% swing we pulled off. While 15 years late, I want to take this opportunity to place on record the extraordinary efforts that Mary made. Along the way, I was inspired by the self-efforts of party members like Terry and Joyce Hemmings, Trevor Corbell, Doreen Woods, Tim House, Shirley Lord, and John and Sandra Marshall. While age and distance may try to get the better of us, I want you to know that I still consider you part of the team. No matter the contest, be it Mayo in 2007 or my own tilt in Carville in 2010, you gave it all and I remain indebted. I have been fortunate to work with some of the best in the business, to which I also owe them much. After 2 years spent as an immigration officer, Brian Moulds gave me my big break at the Property Council. While we disagree on shandies, cricket, and the marginal nature of the seat of Hyson, his guidance today is as favourable to me as it was when I was 25. Dr. Jane Lomax-Smith unleashed me into the realm of political employment, taking me on as an advisor in 2008. Jane is an incredible advocate with a photographic memory that made her so effective in her pursuit of social justice. She taught me a lot, and most importantly, made the whole crew laugh. If I wasn't standing here now, I'd have developed a sitcom based around life in our office. The wisest man I know, David Lewis, gave many great written gifts to the world. While I don't think he'll ever see the merit in my giant novelty check, I have hung on to many of his words. My favourites: good policy is good politics, and politics is the art of the possible, have and shall remain guiding lights. Jennifer Rankin will always be the minister to me. I've never met someone so hardworking. Beyond her very special powers of getting to the truth, she is the ultimate force for good. It is a privilege to count her as a friend, and I am grateful for the 5 years we worked together. Simone Whitlock, also affectionately known to me back in the day as SR, cannot go without mention. A true friend and the best media advisor in the business. Bonded by the affection of 2 overly dependent cats, we survived bushfires, Singleton and estimates together. She works hard, maybe even too hard, but her commitment to her work is dwarfed by the depth of her heart. Other great names I've had the privilege to advise alongside include Andrew Love, Tim Ryan, Brianna Hendry, the member for Wright, Ben Templey, Lee Emanuel, Stephen Nugent, Chris Langworthy and Tristan Sloan. The latter 3 are still kicking goals in the Northern Territory. Life as a political staffer is not the glamour fest some like to paint. The quest to overcome headlines and deadlines is both stressful and tiring. With minimal job security, the challenge is not for the faint-hearted. It's easy to denigrate, but I feel this is unfair. If working in such a role for 11 years labels me as a professional politician, so be it. I am what I am. I've never shied away from wanting to do the best for people and recognised from an early age the best way to bring about change was through the political arena. I welcome recent efforts to improve conditions for those working in either side of politics. I have genuine concern for the staff of the previous government who must now find new jobs. I'm also aghast on reports on scandals coming out from Canberra. As a unionist, it doesn't matter which side a staffer is from. Everyone deserves dignity and respect in the workplace. Following the birth of my beautiful son, Julian, I took a break from advising and went to work for the Education Department. Working on school infrastructure, it was a thrill to see things from the other side and to apologise for the many briefings I had supposedly made people right. Libby Sowery not only forgave me for my sins, but became an excellent boss, and her team were a joy to work with. Whenever we hear ministers in the chamber recite issues with confidence, think of people like Libby, Ross Treadwell, or Julianne Reedstra, who spent hours bringing things together. A wise man once told me that if you stop believing in something, then you should walk away. While it cannot be changed, the shift from year 7 into high school by the previous government was my trigger point. When Labor was last in office, the department made it clear that far greater educational benefit could be achieved by investing in programs rather than extra classrooms. As my job was altered to deliver this change, I felt in all consciousness that I couldn't stay. My wife and I found new challenges in the Northern Territory. For 2.5 fantastic years, we watched crocodiles, explored Kakadu, ate copious amounts of mangoes, while I provided advice on the planning front to the Gunner government. I made so many friends in Darwin and couldn't be prouder that one of them was my minister, Eva Lawler. Hardworking, kind, clever, warm-hearted, fun. These are just some of the words to describe a brilliant human being who I can't help but respect. I saw the good and the bad in the Northern Territory. While it has its challenges, its beauty rests in its resilience. You can't live there without it having a profound effect upon you. Family and COVID were strong forces pulling us back, and I was deeply honoured to be endorsed as the Labor candidate for Playford. I could not be standing here today if I did not receive the support and faith given to me by my union, the Australian Workers' Union. Peter Lamps is not only a great secretary, but the quintessential unionist. I know he'd never seek personal acknowledgement and would always argue that he is the mouthpiece for the many. But I'm breaking the rules and singling him out for all his support. Unions like the AWU supported me, but more importantly, they continue representing the men and women in my electorate who make this state great. I'm privileged and thankful to have been an official of the union and see firsthand the challenges faced by unions in representing members across a range of issues and industries. I commit here to assisting them to achieve the goal of a fair go all round, and thank my many AWU comrades for sharing and showing me how we are stronger together. We often see the union movement demonised for being a barrier to self-interest. Sticking together is a human trait that should be respected and embraced. Many of us only have to look at our ring fingers to appreciate the value of someone watching your back. So long as people care for one another, unions great and small will prevail. Any effort to deprive people this opportunity is tampering with what it is to be human. Beginning our campaign in August last year, I was fortunate to be joined by some outstanding volunteers, and together we door-knocked, phoned and letterboxed all corners of the electorate. There's no I in team, and I couldn't have done it without the selfless support of some amazing volunteers. My dear mate, James Rosser, who regularly made the trek from Colonel Light Gardens to be by my side. We've been mates for over a decade, and I can't find words to express what our friendship means to me. While I go off on my crazy tangents, he's always been there to keep things in perspective. Simeon Bergingo was there for me right from the start. The world threw many challenges at him during this time, and he always maintained his cheery, selfless composure. His inner strength is beyond measure. Greatness awaits, and in years to come, the most significant part of this speech will be the fact I mentioned him before he became famous. I also want to wish him and Beverly a happy and beautiful life together. Bianca Miranda moved heaven and earth in support of the Playford campaign. She would have walked several hundred kilometres to ensure each letterbox received its rightful share of attention. Loyal and always there with a smile on her face, I am grateful for everything she did. Munmahal Khan and his band of brothers were by my side throughout. It's been a great honour getting to know him and his family, and I count him as a true friend. I also want to thank the great Salisbury councillors who stood by my side. Sarah Ook, Beau Brooke and Chad Buchanan gave up what spare little time they had to attend street corner meets and follow up on many council issues I encountered on the way. I've lived in a number of councils, but never met such a dedicated bunch of councillors. They are a credit to Salisbury and do an outstanding job. Tony Pham politely berates me for throwing him into the limelight, but he also knows the value I place in words. He is a very modest, bright, caring and warm person. I have enjoyed his company throughout the campaign. It's wonderful he has taken the leap of faith to join my office staff, and I can't help but be enormously proud of him. He says it to me a lot, but in context to the Honourable Justin Hanson from the other place, you're a good man, Charlie Brown. Thank you for being that shining light and sounding board. I'm not sure how I would cope without you and your receptive ear. I often note how others remark that you are a great bloke, which makes me even prouder knowing that we've been union buddies and the best of mates since 2006. I know I will miss out some names, but I also want to thank Pauline Austin, Alan Jones, Renee Vodegel, Jim Hill, Barry Beachy, Matthew Marozzi, Miranda Mulder, Tully Haynes, Amy Buxton, Hassan Hooker, Ryan Shoemaker, Katie Holloway, Lisa Creffield, Kristen Neal, Eamon Burke, Michael Atkinson, Reggie Martin, Steve May, and Josh Peake for their support and encouragement on the journey. I won't pretend I'm not disappointed that my electorate office is temporarily in Modbury North and some distance away from my community. The silver lining is that a brand new one in Parafield Gardens is being fitted out, and I look forward for it to be ready later in the year. This is centrally located and will serve the community well. In the meantime, it's great to be supported by fantastic staff like Tony, Ryan Shoemaker and Pristine Cook, who go out their way to care for constituents. A special shout out goes to Sam Downer for the amazing role he's played in getting things set up. I literally wouldn't be standing here today without the ongoing support of my rheumatologist, Dr. Barbara True. For 14 years, I've suffered from psoriatic arthritis, which, if not treated, makes most forms of movement very difficult. She has helped me manage it every step of the way, including a flare-up at the start of the campaign. The gratitude I have for her is beyond measure, and whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I also want to thank those candidates who stood for the seat. We may have our differences of opinion, but I can honestly say to Shane Quinn, David Wright and Hemant Dave that it was my pleasure getting to know you. I've stood unsuccessfully in the past, and I want to express my gratitude. Thank you to you and your crews for making me laugh and being exemplary representatives of your cause, especially during the 2 weeks we spent together at pre-polling. As a nod of respect that I place in you all, I asked independent candidate Shane Quinn to put a few words together that I promised to read into my speech, which are as follows. My father said on many occasions, if you don't like something, sit back and shut up, or do something about it. So I did. I had every intention of changing the world, starting with the electorate I ran for. I was not after big paydays or chauffeured cars, not even pats on the back, just getting things done. I can't argue with that, and it's well-made points like those from Shane that show we have more in common than what separates us. We only have to look at the Ukraine at the moment to realise how fortunate we are. These next 4 years, I'm keen to make an impact on a number of fronts for my community and work with people like Shane. I know he wanted to see action at the Pines School, and so did I. It was a pleasure to tell him and Governing Council Chair Paul Williamson that Labor has committed $1 million towards a new gym at the Pines School. Facilities at the school have been an issue for many years, and I'm keen to see the standard lift. I cannot ignore traffic and will work to see improvements on our local roads, bike paths, and public transport networks. Public housing is significant within the electorate, and I congratulate Minister Cook for her efforts in developing Labor's housing commitments. We will see much needed upgrades for 350 currently vacant houses and 3,000 more public homes improved through a maintenance blitz. The case for many of these upgrades in Playford is strong. Above all else, I recognise the biggest commitment I can make is to be there for my community. Sometimes it's to be a shoulder to cry on. Other times, it leads to tangible benefits, like a new postbox in Mawson Lakes, replacement of a slanting Stobie pole on Kings Road, concrete mediums to slow speeding traffic near the Cadsale family home, or trimming trees overhanging the property of Mr. Singh. These may be little things to some, but when your back is against the wall, they mean everything. We door-knocked and phoned thousands of people during my campaign, and my biggest commitment to my constituents is to keep on listening and build on what we achieved during that campaign. This includes listening to local businesses, providing them certainty, and clearing the way for their success. If a rule does not uphold a community value, then it should be classed as red tape. Supporting business does not mean flogging off government assets. Privatisation provides political expediency and overlooks long-term community benefit. While the Liberals reneged on their promise to never sell ETSA or paid consultants $7 million to almost give away the TAB, Labor cannot proclaim its innocence. This is why I stand shoulder to shoulder with the Premier in recognising the past mistakes like the sale of the forests and backing him in, bringing back our trains and trams into the public sector, legislating against any future sale of SA Water, and banning new privatisations of public services. When I told David Brown at a street corner meeting I was proud of Labor's policies, I specifically meant these. A maiden speech is often reflective of the past, but I asked members, if tomorrow's generation could write to us now, what would they say? Would they thank us for anything, or would they be angry? I know if I could send a similar letter, I'd be saying thanks for nothing in relation to past privatisations. The environment is a huge concern to me, as it is to many voters who put their faith in me. Beyond this, but in some way linked, there are two other big sleepers coming our way fast. I'm deeply concerned of a future where there is a transport underclass. As fuel prices rise, roads become clogged, and with few alternatives in place, the ability to move freely may become a luxury. The sooner we end our dependence on fossil fuels, the sooner we can free ourselves from these future shackles. The Premier and Minister Koutsantonis' vision for a new industry producing hydrogen has enormous potential and deserves praise for being visionary. It's easy to criticise, but the fallout from complacency is devastating. Hydrogen may just be the tip of the iceberg for a new beginning, and by embracing the opportunity locally, we're giving ourselves a fighting chance against a dystopian alternative where travel is a luxury for the few. Make no mistake, a new form of fuel on its own will not address this problem. We need to rethink the shape and sizes of our urban environments, invest in bicycle paths and rail while bringing jobs closer to our homes. I was often asked during the campaign why I was standing. I made it clear that I was sick of picking up a newspaper and reading how marvellous it was that we have another $1 million suburb. It is not marvellous, it is an absolute disaster. Housing is not a choice, housing is not a luxury, housing is a fundamental human need and right. Housing is the single largest expense for almost every household in the community. When we are forced to pay vastly higher amounts for our housing, we are left with less to spend on local businesses or to invest in our own future and the future of our children. I'm encouraged that since I started 10 months ago, I've noticed some parts of the media recognising we have a huge problem for both prospective renters and home buyers. According to the latest data from Demographia, the median cost of a house in Adelaide is now 8 times the median household income. We used to pride ourselves on our competitive advantage as being an affordable place to live. Now, according to ANZ and CoreLogic, it will take, on average, 11 times for the first home buyers to save for a median 20% deposit. I meant to say 11 years, I apologise. I have a mortgage and therefore a foot in the door. I'm one of the lucky ones, but the group of have-nots is growing by the day. If we don't make an effort in tackling housing affordability now, we betray generations of future Australians. Some may think that because the value of their property has skyrocketed, that this is not a problem for them. I beg to differ. We must remind ourselves that rising housing costs are all relative. If your house goes up by $100,000, then there's a good chance the one you want to buy next will go up by the same amount. If we don't already, most of us also aspire to have children or grandchildren. I, for one, do not want unaffordable housing to be a terrible legacy we hand to them. State governments on their own are not the silver bullet to solving the problem. We are most certainly part of the mix, but we can't do things on our own without the support of all tiers of government, along with business and social services pulling together as one. The challenge with any goodwill shown in solving this problem is that one false move may quickly unravel everything. In a national market, any gains we make locally can be cancelled out overnight by interstate investment. Hence why this must be seen as both a local and a national problem. I also want to make this clear that this is not a call to drive down the cost of our properties. Such a move will create negative equity, and I have seen the consequences of this while I lived in Darwin. The desired endpoint is fairly clear. We must aim to slow housing prices to allow time for wage growth to catch up. And we need to reduce the cost of new supply coming onto the market. How we get there will be varied. Arguments around solutions such as land supply, building materials, new cities, taxation, and public housing all tackle this problem differently. I've been around long enough to know there's merit in all of these, even if some pull in the opposite direction to one another. That is why we need a concerted effort to examine the merits of every option before deciding on a way forward. The other problem is a general willingness to want to get this problem solved. This can only happen if all sides of politics across the country and in different chambers put down their weapons and start working together. It took a generation for us to land in this mess. It will probably take that long to address it, but it can only happen if we all have the will to succeed. I make this plea to everyone in this chamber. Be an adult and put your differences aside and become part of the solution. I made my commitment to Catherine Mora that I would say such words, but I also say this to my son and all other children living in my electorate, that I'm here to be part of the solution. My son Julian and nephew Toby are in the gallery. I promise to care about the issues so that hopefully you will grow into a world where you don't have to. To Julian, also known as the King, Monkey or Mighty Julian, you are warm, funny, and a caring boy that gives so much. Like your dad, you're a bit of a joker. Maybe not quite as funny. We've built around us a world layered with complexity. When this has got the better of others, use that superpower of yours and give them a smile. And when things get hard for you, remember, Daddy loves you very much. As you get older, remember, I'm only ever as far as a phone call away, and hopefully even closer. Most importantly, don't stop being yourself. Nobody can do a better job of being you. To my sister Jane, I've always admired your ability to stick up for yourself, and even more impressed how you do it for others. You could easily be doing this job, but instead, you've chosen to excel at teaching and make a difference in many lives every day. You have every right to be proud of what you've done. You, Stuart and Toby, are a great unit, and we love spending time with you all. My parents, John and Elizabeth, mean the world to me. Something doesn't feel quite right if I don't speak to them on a daily basis. We pull each other's legs all the time, and I enjoy every minute I spend with them. I love them deeply and owe them so much. My mum never stops wanting the best for her family. Selfless and loyal, she's always surrounded by friends, because she is one. My dad is my best mate. That's why he was the best man at my wedding. I'm glad you can be here today, because this win is for you. During my wedding speech, I had everybody worried that I was going to forget my wife. It was deliberate then, as it is now. I'm saving the best till last. My wife, Bryony, is a very special person. She puts up with a lot, especially me. The last few months have been a challenge, and she has never complained. A lot has been sacrificed for me to be standing here today, which is why this win is as much a victory for her. She has a heart of gold, the patience of a saint, and never stops giving. I've been lucky to travel to many parts of the world, but the most beautiful thing I've ever seen was the instant love she had when our son Julian was born. Instinctively, she knew how to be a great mum from the get-go, and I love her for all that she is and what she does. When we first met, she told me she liked adventures. We've had a lot together, and I look forward for many more to come. I can't stress how much of an honour this moment has been for me and my family. While I think it's important to have some idea of who I am, what matters most is the people at home. I've given you over 6,500 words in telling you my story. Now, it's over to you to tell me yours.